Okay, we are live here at H&D Abroad. I'm Dee. This is a different location, as you can see, and we're starting a little bit earlier to um, give you a fresh look at what birthing abroad looks like. So we are so excited to have a group of ladies that are going to share their journey. So let's bring them into the room now.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey everyone.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and begin?
Sounds good. Well, I can
Let's
start
see.
by introducing myself.
Respect. Sorry.
Okay, we're ready. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Let's see. Go ahead. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, ladies.
Hello, my name is Nia Reynolds. I currently live in Ecuador. I'm a permanent resident here, and I decided to work abroad in Mexico, in Cancun, Mexico. I have a family of five. It's me, my husband, my two sons, and our daughter, who's now 7 months old. And we're from the Washington, D.C. area. So that's where we're coming from. We've been living abroad for 9 years now, and we live off the coast in Ecuador. So we really enjoy it here.
Awesome. I'm Eliana. I'm currently in Tanzania. This is where I have birthed abroad and will be doing it again since I'm 6 months pregnant. We have a family of, let's see, we have five children now, so that's seven. Okay, I got my math right. We've been here since 2020, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and we stay around the coastline in Tanzania. And yeah, our home birth journey, it has been incredible, but we will get into those details later.
Hi, I'm Courtney Farley. I am from Washington, D.C. as well. My family and I are currently living in Carousel in the ABC Islands. I have gave birth in Colombia it was 2021 to my baby girl. It was a great experience. Can't wait to share. And it's a family of six of us here.
Wonderful.
Dee, I think you're on mute.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so when you all got your positive pregnancy test, please tell me what was the next step in deciding how you would get your preventive pregnancy care, and then when did you decide I'm not going to birth in the U.S. I want to birth abroad?
That's a good one. So for me, since I was already living abroad, I already was going to birth abroad. So I had great prenatal care in Ecuador. And it wasn't until around the 6 months that I decided I really wanted a different experience. So I started looking into water birth, and I could not find anyone here that I really felt comfortable with doing it. And if I did, I still had to change cities anyway. So I said, well, if we're going to make a trip out of it, let's make a trip. So we started looking into other countries. We narrowed it down to Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. We compared the three countries and we decided that Mexico was the best fit. We found a JCI approved hospital, accredited hospital there, which is an international rating for hospitals. And we found a doctor that's actually from Colombia, was trained in California, but she was working there as an expat doctor as well. So she was very familiar with working with expats coming from other countries. So that is when we decided around my seventh month to go ahead and fly out to Cancun. We were there a couple months before I was due, and then we stayed a few months after I had the baby before until we pretty much had all our paperwork together.
Okay, okay, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
after my, yeah, yeah, after my positive pregnancy test with our fourth child, Gianna, she's a year and a half now. She'll be 2 in July. So we went to a hospital here called Aga Khan. And so they're supposed to be the best in all of East Africa. So I was like, I'm only going to the best. Like, I don't want to play any games. Now, the crazy part is at 20 weeks, so I had never had this issue before. At 20 weeks pregnant, my water broke and they put me on bed rest. So I had Kara Aga Khan. I stayed there for about 24 hours. They were like, don't move, don't get up, you can't do anything else, like stay put. And I'm like, ooh, this is this is wild, because since I had gotten pregnant, I knew that I wanted to do a home birth being outside of the US, because before I had always done epidurals. And I was like, I don't really even know what like labor is as an experience, even though I've already had 3 children. So I'm like, I'm gonna do a home birth, but I need to be in the water because I don't want to feel as much pain while I'm pushing. So I was on
Yes.
bed rest from
Yes.
20 weeks. Yes, yes. From 20 weeks until 39 weeks. So she made it completely full term. It was an interesting journey, but I'm blessed and thankful to say this pregnancy has not been so eventful so far. So, but we got through it. It's good. Praise
Yes.
the Most High.
Oh, congrats.
Yes,
That's a
yes.
lot of weeks. I had bed rest with my first, so I understand what you mean by that.
Okay, okay.
So for me, after our last child in 2018, I told my husband I'm not having any more children in America.
Yeah.
So I was adamant about that. However, we had left DC in 2020 and moved to Florida. Just it was in the midst of everything. I just wanted to be close to water and where natural food was growing, and not knowing what was happening. And I had just got back from Africa, which that was my plan, was to come back to America, get everything together, and we were going to Africa. So when our lease we signed, we went down to Florida, which was supposed to have been a vacation, but it turned to a staycation. And I was just like, I'm not going back up there, right? So we were there. We found the place, like 2 weeks of us being there, right on the Intracoastal in Hollywood, Florida. And it was great. It was what we needed at the time. 6 months later, our lease was up, and I found out I was pregnant with our baby that we have. So it was 2020, end of 2020, I found out I was pregnant. And our lease was going to be up in January. Starting to get cold in Florida, I said, look, babe, I'm not having any more kids in America. So, Africa is too far right now for us to go, and because we still had our place in Washington, DC, and a storage in Florida. I said, well, I'm gonna go see what Cartagena what's going on over there, because luckily I had a business partners, and they were going to Cartagena like for the last 2 years prior for our business venture. So they will always tell me about the areas and how beautiful and the culture. I said, well, I looked at the flights. They were $50 one way from Florida. It took 2 hours to get there. Me and my baby girl, we went. So while I was there, we spent maybe a little time in the tourist area just to get a feel for the location and where we were. And Cartagena is not huge, so you only have but so many areas to go to. So luckily, because I always like to live like a local, and ask questions and where I'm at, and if anyone has recommendations. Once we left the Airbnb in Boca Grande, we went to an area called Laguito, and I stayed in a hotel for like 2 days, and then someone referred me to an apartment. So I ended up getting an apartment there. And the lady who I rented from, she spoke English and she referred me. She spent a lot of time in America. She referred me to a doctor that spoke English. So that was amazing and great because he was maybe 5 minutes from where we were. He really was really attentive, and I felt comfortable with him. So that was one of my biggest concerns when I was considering Colombia. But once I saw they said that the healthcare was better than the US, I said, well, if it's better than the US, you know, God gonna show me, lead me in the right direction, and He did. It was eventful because I really didn't plan having a baby in Colombia before we went to Colombia. So it was all about trial and error. Overall, it was a great experience. I had a nanny. I'm glad that I did it. But the journey leading to, I was going to see my doctor every month, or every couple of months, or how often you're supposed to see him. And then I wanted to surprise my friend in America and go there, right, in April. I was only supposed to be there maybe a couple of weeks, but I ended up being there for 2.5 months. So I saw my original doctor in America while I was there, but I never told my doctor in Colombia that I was leaving. So when we came back to Colombia in June, we love staycation. So we wanted to go and stay at this hotel in Boca Grande. We love it. While I was there, I started having, and I'm maybe a month before giving birth, and I'm starting to have pains in my stomach. So I know this is my 5th time doing this. So I know about, the preterm, Braxton Hicks contraction. I said, this is different. So the hotel called the ambulance for me. And when we get to the hospital, they put a bar through the door. Now, mind you, I'm having contractions. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what am I to do? So they put me back in the ambulance. We went to another hospital, and they wouldn't let me in that hospital either, right? So luckily, the ambulance took me back. Everything calmed down. I wasn't in active labor, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is a terrible experience. So I had called my doctor the very next day, and he's like, well, Miss Farley, where have you been? I said, well, I went to America. He said, you didn't tell me you went to America, right? So he asked me to come in. He checked me. Everything was fine. So he was just saying that, like how we think every country is going to be like America, where you could just walk in and say, oh, something's wrong with me, and they'll see you. It's not like that in Colombia. Well, in Cartagena, right? So after communicating with him, because it's not like they're big hospitals. They call them hospitals, but they're more like clinics, what you would say, right? But it's a little bigger than a clinic. So when I actually went into labor, my nanny was there with me that morning, and they let me right in the hospital. I was like, thank you, Lord. My doctor was there waiting on me, and I had a great delivery. So I can't say. It was an experience, but it was worth
Awesome.
it.
Yes.
So
It
was
was out
there
for
an
you.
intention to was there always an intention to birth outside of the US?
It was always an intention to live outside of the US. And I knew that I wanted more children so that my children would probably be birthed outside of the US. And it was just, when we moved to Cartagena, it was just as I just told you. Although we had been planning and we looked at YouTube videos and researching different countries, we just literally at a time made a jump. We didn't know, okay, when I moved, it was January 24th, 2001 to Cartagena. We didn't plan before and say, okay, on January 24th, we're moving. No, it was something that presented itself, opportunity, and we jumped and took that opportunity. And I'm glad we did.
What about you,
Yes.
Nia? Was it kind of in your planning? Because what the reason why I'm asking, you all have had children in the US, and now that you live abroad, it sounds like there was some intention around not going back for
Right.
birthing.
Definitely. For us, I was exactly like her. I did not want to birth again in the US. I knew that for sure. And for me, I was thinking, well, if I don't want to birth again in the US, I probably just won't have any more kids. I wasn't really looking to have more, so I waited a long time. My second oldest is 9. So by the time I was pregnant, he was 8. So it was a little gap because I didn't necessarily have plans to have kids again because I didn't have a great experience in the U.S. I didn't realize until I moved abroad and started receiving medical services that, wow, healthcare is not the same everywhere. And I can get good healthcare here. I don't have to be afraid to become pregnant and have a baby abroad. So once that fear left me, we decided, hey, let's try again because we have 2 boys and we really want a girl. So we'll try again and we're okay with trying twice if we need to. So yes, it was intentional to birth outside the U.S. I'm very much a stickler on knowing everything before I do something. So I did a lot of research. I knew exactly which countries I was interested in. I knew why. I'm already a citizen of the U.S., so I already knew my baby would receive that. I'm already a permanent resident in Ecuador, so I knew the baby would receive that. So I wanted to give a gift of having that had somewhere else that we're not already working on. So for us, we chose Mexico because of their family values. Their culture there is very family oriented, and their legal policy is very family oriented. So not only did we have the baby there, but me and my husband, as her parents, was able to get our permanent residence immediately thereafter, and her siblings, her brothers, are also able to get their permanent residence. So we didn't know there was the intentions on only blessing the one baby. We wanted to bless all of our children. So all 5 of us now we're permanent residents, and she's a citizen of both there in the U.S. And our parents, both my husband's parents and my parents, because they're her grandparents, also can become permanent residents without going through the normal process of becoming a temporary resident. And so that was important to me because they're all in retirement age. And so in case they don't want to move to Ecuador, like in my family's case, my family's not here. My husband's family is here. But my parents didn't decide to move here. Well, they may like Mexico better because of the distance to the U.S. and may be more comfortable for them. So I wanted them to have an option. So we did our research. We understood the quality of the passport. That was important. We wanted to know how many countries our baby will be able to get into visa free. And we want our sons to have a chance to get their second passport. And so Mexico has a family visa program that you can also go through. But with ours, because we got a permanent residence, we only have to live in the country for 18 more months, and then we can sit for our citizenship, which is huge. That's a very short, streamlined time. And so we did plan it out. It wasn't just out of nowhere. And that's why we chose to leave Ecuador, move there for a few months, have the baby, do all the paperwork, and we got her passport, both her Mexican and her U.S. passport, before she even turned 3 months. So the process was very streamlined. It was very good. And the Mexican government, it was perfect. They did an excellent job. They were very, very kind and fast. They didn't, there was no beating around the bush. They knew what documents they wanted. We had the documents to provide, and we got everything in that short amount of time.
Hmm. Eliana, one of the questions that we get a lot is about healthcare. So pregnancy, I think, is the perfect time to talk about the healthcare system, especially, places we've never been to. So Tanzania is one that has come up on our channel before. So tell me about how, because I think you are getting some hospital related care now. You were talking earlier on your channel about cost. Do you want to kind of add that into the conversation about your decision about choosing to birth in Tanzania versus coming back? I think you're from Ohio. When you coming instead of coming
Yes,
back to
yes.
Ohio to be with family?
Yes, so I was shocked to realize that Tanzania has a really good healthcare system, especially Aga Khan in Dar es Salaam. Now we're actually in a different region, and there's a hospital up here too that I'm going to that has good care as well. But the system is different. So as like in the States, we would see our doctor privately. You kind of have to like wait So everyone's waiting and then trying to go see the doctor. So the system is a little different, but it is so much cheaper. Like it's crazy. You won't even believe it. Because in the States, we paid, multiple thousands of dollars to give birth in the hospital. And here, the actual labor and delivery is $800 if you have the baby in the hospital. But you guys know I went into labor early and they were able to stop all of that. And so with the ultrasound, with they were giving me some medications and then staying for 24 hours, it came out to about $700.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
That's very similar cost of Mexico as well. But since I did water birth,
Okay.
I had to pay more, and I did it in the hospital because there,
Okay.
when I did my research, they said it's of course you can home birth, and they don't mind it. But since I was a foreigner coming into the country, it was easier to prove that I had the baby in Mexico was going to the hospital
Ah,
versus doing it
Sure.
at home. You kind of need witnesses more than just your midwife. So for me, it was pretty awesome to find Waterburg in a hospital, in an international accredited hospital, and at around about the same price point. So all in all, I ended up spending probably double that because of the extra fees. The OBGYN fee is not connected to the fee. That was just hospital. But we paid out of pocket. And unlike the US, once it was done, it was done. There was no surprise bills that came in the mail afterwards. I knew the cost, we paid it, and that was it. And that was a blessing.
It
what
is, yes.
what about you, Courtney?
So our fees were probably for the doctor, the day of delivery, and the hospital stay. It was around roughly 1,000 USD. So every time I would go to the hospital or go visit my doctor, I think I paid him maybe 35 USD or something like that. So, all in all, maybe about $1,100 to give birth. And it was, we paid before we left the hospital. I think it was
Exactly.
because they didn't have the card machine working, so we still had owed maybe 100 US dollars that we went back and paid, but we made sure we, got it taken care of before we left. They actually was thankful about that they didn't
Right.
have to, ask us to be billed later or anything. And as far as her receiving, me cortisone receiving residency, she is a resident. We are not residents. Well, that was a process that we were working on right before we came to Curacao. But I'm gonna be honest, I was just like over it. So it may still be in the works, but just us being giving birth in Colombia, that didn't automatically give us resident status. So she is a resident, and I'm thankful that a citizen, and I am here in Curacao. That's what we're working towards. And the beauty of it is you get indefinite residency here. So you don't have to keep going back. And as long as I believe we're on the island for 2 years, we can apply for our Dutch passports after that. So
Ah,
I really, enjoy the benefits and learning about the culture of the Dutch culture, and the kids are learning 4 languages, and it's a blessing to be in Curacao because I never thought that it had this much Afro culture here. I just didn't think it. So to be here and the kids are learning, we are learning as a family, and who knows, we may start growing a family a little bit more here. So I'll keep you all updated on that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
So
definitely.
when you all are the postpartum period in the US, 6 weeks, your job is expecting you to be back, your family and friends are expecting you to kind of, bounce back. How was the postpartum time period, your interaction with medical support? community support. D- did that look different between your birthing in the U.S. and birthing abroad? Nia, if you want to start that.
Well, I guess in my case, it definitely looked different because I didn't have anything I had to go back to within 6 weeks. You know, with both of my older two, I was still working. So to get 6 weeks off was like, wow, I got 6 weeks off. And I took a little bit extra time, but I didn't have much extra time. In general, I think that here you do get more time off. It's expected to get more time off. A lot of like my workers, for example, in Ecuador, a lot of my workers, they stay gone for like 2, 3 years after having their
Right.
baby.
It's
It doesn't matter what level that they work, they take their time after having a baby. I'm definitely doing the same thing. I'm getting the chance to enjoy all of it. I'm at home with the baby and I love it. You know, it's just a wonderful experience. Also, when it comes to aftercare and just the postpartum care, I think it was kind of similar to the U.S. I went back to the doctor a week later after having the baby. They checked on me, and then they checked on me again in a month, and then at the 6 week mark. So it was very similar, 1, 2, 3, and then after that, I really didn't need to come back and forth. It's just pediatrician appointments for her. I'm very lucky because actually my third pregnancy, with me being the oldest out of all the other ones, I had a very easy time. I had really good health care here. They didn't treat me like I was older because I am 42. So being in the U.S., and if I was that age, I would have probably gotten more time with the doctor. They would have brought me in more tests, more exams, and constantly focused on my age as opposed to here. They wasn't focused on my age. They were focused on my health. And they were like, you're very healthy. Your blood pressure is awesome. Everything is wonderful. Your weight gain is nothing to talk about. It's reasonable. And so they treated me as a patient who was in a healthy state, not a patient who was older having a baby.
The care that you get is what we really want, as
Exactly.
birth workers, as birth supporters, but it is not how it is in the US. 1 week later, you have to go in based on having some kind of health issue, but it really is whether you've had a surgical birth or
Mm-hmm.
a vaginal birth, it's still 6 weeks, and there's a lot that can happen in 6 weeks,
Yeah.
and so you got really. The description of your care was excellent. I'm really glad to hear that. Eliana, you are a freelancer, you and your family have that flexibility. So, how has postpartum transitioning with your older children, healthcare, how has that been able to be integrated in this life abroad that might have been different from how you lived postpartum after the birth of your
Yes.
older
Yes.
children?
Yes, it has been amazing. It was so great to not have to go back to work, like leaving the house. Like man, I had to catch up on my sleep. Look, I was not trying to leave the house. And then here in Tanzania, if mothers leave before like 3 months postpartum, they'll think you're insane. Like they will tell you, like, go sit down, go lay down in the bed. Like, what are you doing out? You and the baby need to be sitting down somewhere. Like, do not come out. We even went to go get her birth certificate, and the guy is like, why are you here? I'm like, should we get the birth certificate? He's like, that can wait. What are you doing out here? And the funny part is they here in Tanzania, it's like always hot to us. And to them, it was wintertime when she was born. So it's like 80 degrees. And they're like, no, it's winter. No, go home. I'm like, it is not wintertime, y'all. Like, but they thought it was winter. They wanted to wrap her in like 50 coats. I'm like, guys, she's gonna overheat like this. This is not gonna go well. But I guess their body temperatures are different than us. I definitely not wrapping her in 50 coats, but that's how they do here. But the healthcare was amazing. I went back to my gynecologist at Aga Khan, and so she knew about the home birth. She said, "Oh, everything looks good. You're good to go." It was about 6 weeks when I went back to her.
Yeah, it sounds like Tanzania is like the South. in the
Right,
southern
right.
US, baby, you're still fresh. You need to go on back home. What are you doing standing up?
Right.
So it's nice to see that tie-in. The traditional Southern values are mirrored in the way that you get chewed back home and to
Yes.
really be loved on and cared for. Um, is there did you
Just to
hear any
piggyback off of
resistance
that,
from family?
yes,
That's what I'm really wanting to also bring into the conversation because we talk about it in moving abroad, but how about deciding to do a major health issue like birthing outside of the US?
hmm. Well, I didn't get any pushback. Luckily, no one. A couple of people asked, "Well, are you going to have the baby there? Do you have a doctor that you like?" But they kind of know me. They know that I definitely have it. I'm not. Even though I moved abroad, I'm not that free thinking. So it wasn't too much question. But when I was thinking about doing this with my second son, I had him in Brazil. There definitely was a lot more questions around it because we had never been abroad at that point. So we had a lot of support, and then my husband was very supportive of us switching countries to go have the baby. And very similar to your story, that's how they are in Mexico. They definitely expected us to be in. The legal aspects that we had to handle afterwards. The judge that was in the case area actually came to our condo and delivered the paperwork that we needed. She had us sign the paperwork in person. She gave the oath with her hand up and took pictures like it was all legal. She came to our house and did it, and we were amazed. We were like, wow. We didn't even know that service was even available, but the person we hired out there to help us through our process, she just made it happen. She was a mother that was from Romania, and she had her baby in Mexico. And ever since then, she helped other women who come down to have their child there. So we had a very similar experience where people expected us to stay in for longer than 6 weeks, and they brought it to us. So we didn't have to go out to get the birth certificate or to fill out the paperwork or anything. And even the passport, we did have to go in person to get that. But it was really quick. Like I said, we had all of her Mexico stuff before 2 months, and then her U.S. passport stuff before three. I mean, it was so fast. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that. We were expecting to be there for at least 6 months. So that really was a blessing to see how efficient their government is. Because that side of Mexico, I don't know. From the U.S. standpoint, I only know what I see on the news. But when I got there and actually worked in the system, it was very, very similar to what you said here in Tanzania.
So, so for me, my oldest is 22. And yeah, I was 18 when I had her in America. So of course, totally it's a difference of everything for me because after her, my next child is 18, he'll be 19. And then I took a break for 13 years and then had three more children.
Mm.
So after giving birth to my last child, I've been a stay at home mom with them. I have my beauty business, but I haven't act, actively worked for someone in over 10 years. So it was still different giving birth and postpartum in Colombia because at 4 days I was outside. I said I'm going to get my nails done and have some self care, and I felt good. I wasn't down, like I did. I took an hour and a half for myself because the spa was right across the street, and I went over and I enjoyed it, and I put my belt on my waistband, and I walked and did some exercising, but I it was great because we lived right by a private beach, so I would go to the water a lot. We had a lot of plants in the house, so as far as the energy around me, it was great. So I didn't really have
Mm.
a bad experience during postpartum. The kids, they loved it, having a new baby and just the my neighbor, as soon as we came home from the hospital, because you only stay in a hospital for literally one day. You have her that day, the next day you're out of there, right?
Wow.
So when we came
Yes.
back to our house, the neighbors had bags of dresses for the baby. I was like, wow. And where we
Aw.
lived in Columbia and Crespo, it is a residential area. So it's family oriented, and they give women top tier treatment. So no matter where you are, you have preference. And I love that. And they are very overprotective of the children. Like my 4 and 6 year old, they love the water. Like I said, we was living in Florida, so we would go to the beach a lot. But they know how far to go. They're not even going to go real far. In Colombia, they see the baby touching the water. They like, get her, in Spanish. And I'm like, she's okay. Hey, she's good. But I had to learn it was just their culture, and I love it though. It made me feel a sense of security. And it was the same way. I didn't bring the baby right out because we had the nanny, and I just, didn't. It was really nowhere for her to go at first, besides her doctor's appointments. But other than that, I was outside. I was out because the sun was out, and I just felt
Yes.
me staying in because I had been in prior to that, all of those months. And I really was like, okay, I just need to get outside and get the energy of the sun and the water and some self care. So that's how my postpartum looked.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Let's see.
Wonderful.
So we've got a question here about your partner. So bringing in your partner, how did they feel about the choice about birthing abroad? Anyone want to take a stab at this one?
I'm just going to answer just straight up. He was with it. he was like, let's go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Very supportive. My husband was definitely very supportive and totally on board as well. And he did a lot of the research initially. So,
Wow.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Yeah, my husband was supportive as well. He's like, if you're gonna do it, I'm with you. The funny thing is, our midwife, she actually broke her foot the day I went into labor. And so it was literally just us. And a
wow.
friend came over, but she's not a midwife or a doula. She's like, I can be there for support. So the midwife is on the phone with her foot broken, telling me, like, don't push yet. Like, it was the funniest experience. But yeah, he was
Wow.
really supportive, helped the whole time. He was just trying to make sure I was good.
That's great.
So the value of family outside of the US, it tends to be more elevated. So were your partner and children invited into the birthing space, whether you were doing a water birth, a home birth, or a hospital birth?
That's a good question. Well, for me, no. It was just my husband there with me. And our two oldest sons, no. I don't think I felt comfortable doing it in front of them. Didn't want to scar them. But yeah, and in the hospital I went to, they were very much still COVID protected. So it was definitely a lot of COVID protocols. I had to take a COVID test before I even went in the birthing room because they wanted to make sure that we were okay. So in our case, just my husband there, the doctor that I was seeing, and then the nurse will come in and out. Um, since I did all natural, no epidural, no medicines, I didn't need anything, and I didn't have any high alerts. It all just happened. I mean, by the time I got there, I was almost fully dilated because I waited before. I wanted to wait and make sure I did a lot of the laboring at home. So when I got there, I only had about 2 centimeters left to go, and she was there. So a few hours later, but just my husband in the birth room because of
Okay.
COVID protocol.
For
One of
me,
the
oh,
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Courtney.
No,
Yeah.
I was just going to say no. That was a time that my husband was livid. I have to admit, he was not allowed in the room, and he was angry. But the doc, because it was COVID happening, and the doctor was he really couldn't go against the protocols at the hospital. So it was like soon as I gave birth to her, because my husband's on the phone with his mom, just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna miss this. And it was happened really quickly. like you, Nia. Once I got to the hospital, I was already 10 centimeters. So basically, she was out in 30 minutes, right? Thankfully. And soon as she came out, the doctor took a picture of her and ran. I'm talking about he ran, put it on the door. It was like, look, she's here, she's safe. And my husband, he had a sigh of relief. And then once they cleaned me up and put me in the room, he came right over. But no, he was not there.
Yeah, COVID definitely gave a turn to medical care, but even in the U.S., there was of course, an impact when going to the hospital. Um, Eliana, were you? Let's see. I don't know how distant your children were. Were you birthing during COVID as well?
Yes. So I was at home and we had a water birth. We had a pool in our bathroom. And so I went into labor around 6 p.m. and gave birth at 2 a.m. So all the children were asleep except our son Josiah. He randomly got up right as I was about to start pushing, and he's sitting there by the pool. And he was like 2 years old at the time. So he's like, what is going on?
Oh,
But yes, the others were
Birth,
asleep. For some reason, he was like, I gotta wake up at 2 a.m.
I
I
got to
don't know what
see
it
this
was.
happen. Right.
That is beautiful. What were you all introduced to any of the traditional foods or ceremonies? Wrapping the belly. Um, how were you, or have you become familiar with the cultural traditions around birthing because you were able to birth outside the U.S.?
Yes,
mm,
yes. So we have a nanny, and so she's been with us for a while. And so she was basically just there to do whatever I wanted her to. She didn't like try to push too much of her traditions on me or anything like that. So she was basically helpful in any way she could be. Now they do like around pregnancy, they'll eat like a lot of porridge and soups. There's even like this they'll eat some kind of like mud that's a special mud that has like a lot of iron. And so pregnant women will eat it here.
wow. Yeah, I didn't. I'm more of the same way. I didn't do anything that I didn't do the first couple of times. I didn't change anything. So culturally, but I did eat better. So I did start out with the soups and the smoothies. I took their advice on that and try not to eat too many really seasoned foods for the first week, and then after that, slowly introduce regular foods back into my diet, which I already kind of eat healthy anyway. So but when it comes to wrapping the belly and all of that, I mean, normal stuff. If you want to wrap it, you did. I mean, I didn't a whole lot. I just kind of, I don't know. This pregnancy, I just allowed it to be what it was, and I dropped a lot of weight, so it kind of helped out a lot as well in the very beginning. But yeah, that was my experience when it comes to culturally postpartum.
Hmm. Courtney, any stews or soups or traditions of sitting in the sun? I mean, I'm learning so much. That's really what's exciting about this move abroad journey. Being a birth and postpartum doula is just kind of learning how people integrate um, the mother to the earth, the mother to the sun. Um, were you able to experience any of that?
Yes, and it was just because of the research that I've been doing
Hmm.
on my own prior. And I'm really protective when I'm pregnant of my children and who I'm around and my energy. So, and
Mhm.
we were basically um, pescatarians. So I had already cut out a lot of just unhealthy foods in my diet. Going outside on because we had balconies off of our bedroom, so I would go out there every day. I would try to take the kids to the beach often, at least 2 or 3 times a week, because it was a black crystal sand, and it was they said it was healing. So I would just go plant my feet in the sand, go watch the sunset, spend a lot of time in nature. And I danced a lot. And that's why the baby, she loves to dance. Oh my gosh, all of the children, but the baby, she's a dancing machine because I was active. Even at home, I would just set my intentions and the tone of just what I wanted to create, just a harmonious environment for the baby, myself, and my family. So, not really any practices that I go by of Colombian traditions. No, I just set my own.
Good,
Absolutely.
wonderful.
So, I am a breastfeeding advocate, and I'm finding that all of the countries that you all are in are very supportive of breastfeeding, are supportive of um, or giving preference to the mother. So I'm glad to see that you all's experiences have just been, kind of validating the things that I've researched. The Is there a message that you could give um, to Black women that are considering, hey, I want a different kind of birth. I want to feel seen, especially not as a geriatric, especially if you're over age 35. What message would each of you give to another Black woman that could give them confidence that birthing abroad could help them in the theme of Black Maternal Health Week? Have that body autonomy and be respected in the provider patient space.
You know what? For me, I would say, if you have time, you should definitely plan it out. It's not something to just say, I like this country. Let me go there and have a baby. Like, really learn what it means to be a citizen of that country. What are you giving to your child? Because becoming a citizen and living there as a permanent resident is different. Um, so be intentional if that's what you want to do, and then decide what kind of experience you want to have. If you want a home birth, are you going to a country where they appreciate that and there won't be any problems on the legal side when you go to get the birth certificate or when you go to get their passport? If you want a hospital birth, but you want it to be flexible and freeing, then doing research on that. So actually knowing what is expected when you get there and having your documents together, because you are going to foreign lands, you want to make sure you understand what kind of visa should I have when I come in with my U.S. passport. How far along in my pregnancy can I be to be able to travel and not get turned around at the border? How long can I afford to live here until all the paperwork is done for my baby? Because a lot of the countries that we're speaking of, the passports there won't get you into the U.S. visa free. You may need a visa to go back and just to take your newborn back. So do you know where the U.S. consulate is or the U.S. embassy is so that you can get your child their U.S. passport so they don't have to go and need to apply for a visa? Those are the things that we looked into and we wanted to know how long will it take, and that's also why we chose Mexico. Because here in Ecuador, we have one consulate and one embassy. But the country is not really very big, so to have two locations to go to, that's not bad. But in Mexico, they have more than 10. They had so many. So if one consulate near me was really booked with appointments, I could make an appointment at another one. And that was important to me to know that they had that much of a relationship with our home country. So definitely being prepared, coming with your documents, and if you have children like I do, making sure that, hey, if you're going to spend 6 months down there, how are you going to school your kids? Because that's going to be way longer than summer break. And you may be having your baby when there's not even a summer break anyway. For us, our children go to private school online, so they can study online. They didn't lose their time with studying. And we brought verification letters to show in case customs asked us, well, how are your kids going to go to school? We brought that information along. So just being prepared and knowing what your intention is, what do you want? For us, it was a legacy thing. We wanted to give a gift to our kids and their kids on forward. That's why we did it. It wasn't just the experience, because we could have stayed in Ecuador and birthed abroad and had the experience. But we wanted to give that gift because the permanent resident in Mexico is similar to Tanzania. It's permanent, permanent. You don't have to come back every
Mm.
year or 2 years or 5 years to renew it. It is truly permanent. And so that was important for us.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Eliana?
apologize.
Courtney, I was gonna say, anyone who wanna jump in?
Just please repeat the question. The baby, this is like her nap time, but I do apologize. The allergy just took her out.
No, just what words can you offer to Black women that
Right.
may be looking for, um, support or information about, "Hey, this is a good choice. This is a positive choice to make, to birth abroad."
So research, research, research. I do agree with that. For me, it was about changing the trajectory of my family's history outside of the US. So I have, just really, I commend people who have created YouTube channels and share and vlog their experiences, because seeing someone experience something that you desire, it gives you hope, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I also want to you it just depends on your age, because you need to know how the doctors are, how far the hospital is from your home, because you have amazing countries, but you may live in the suburbs and a hospital could be an hour away in case anything happens. So it's just really good
Mhm.
to have be very knowledgeable and have an idea, right? You'll never know. But then once you have an idea of countries, then you start to communicate with the people that have already done it, right? And you go in, they may share their resources, their doctors, and or their doulas and midwives that help them along the way. But I can say it's a rewarding experience, and you're never going to have all of the answers. Plans change, decisions don't. So, you know, um, having a healthy baby was very important to me, right? But getting out of America was way more important to me. And I'm
Mhm.
thankful that I did choose Cartagena and didn't just stay in Florida, right? Because I mean, we all know it's just so much of anxiety, of everything that happens around every day that we experience, that no pregnant woman should have to just go through the traumas every day of just what happens in America. So things happen everywhere, right? But there's better quality of life different places in
Yeah.
the world, to raise your children, to experience different languages, um, to wake up and not have to hear sirens or look at bad things on the news, to actually be able to world school, and that's an experience like no other. So I just say first, start with the people that have already done it, and
Mhm.
we are the examples. And we didn't, I personally didn't have every step planned out, but what I
True,
can say,
true.
me being there and immersed in the culture and communicating with the locals and living like a local, not being just secluded like an expat, but learning how the way everyday life was in Colombia, it was great. And the beautiful part when I got there, because I'm smaller built, so I don't start showing until I'm maybe 5.5 or 6 months. So when I initially went to Cartagena, I was maybe 3 months. So it's really like the locals feel like they raised by, they were there, they saw me through all of the pregnancy and then giving birth, and then my other children growing up. So it was a great experience. and one that I don't know if I could have planned it to a T like it happened, but the journey continues. And
Amen.
just really go back to what I initially said. Really start doing your research, because everyone's experience is different, everyone's body is different, your desires of what you want for your children. I've been homeschooling, so it really wasn't about them going to a school. I just wanted them to have a better quality of life to start, just the
Mhm.
foundation. And then we can build and grow and expand from there what we were going to do. I wanted them to be safe and have a better quality of life. And
Mhm.
that's what I got. Very attentive country that they really love the women. And I do appreciate that. But when it came to me actually working back in my field, I said, okay, I gotta get back to life now. So that's why we moved to Curacao, because, they speak English, they accept US dollars and things of that sort. But having a baby in Cartagena was great. It was great. And I would suggest Medellin as well. I would suggest researching that city in Colombia as well.
Beautiful. All right, Eliana, round us out, girl. I know you the
Yes,
preacher in the group
yes,
too.
yes. Think freely, don't carry the same fears. A lot of times in America, they push so much fear on us around childbirth. And I used to be in healthcare, and it was crazy. Even looking at the statistics in America, the mortality rate amongst women, and then the babies as well, even the C-section rate. So coming over here and having like a communal lifestyle, the whole community watches out for children. They see motherhood and pregnancy as a blessing. Like when you tell people in America you have 4 or 5 kids, they're like, but when you tell them here, they're like, oh, the Most High has blessed you.
All right.
Wow, you're such a blessing. Like, they will be so happy. So just think freely, be empowered. And like they said, definitely research. Definitely, if you can plan it out. Even sometimes the best plans go awry, though. Like I said, my midwife broke her foot, my water broke at 20 weeks, So just have faith and be encouraged.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I I want to round out this conversation with some closing thoughts. If you are in this group, and I see some of my doula friends in in the chat. Thank you guys so much for joining. We are here to encourage you to get the information because people are talking this talk on the internet. Um, this option is available to you, but you do need to do your due diligence. You need to research the hospitals, the doctors, the credentialing, what the passport situation looks like if you need to be in country longer so that you have the information to take action on. But to do that, you don't have to do it alone. As many of us have learned on the Move Abroad journey, you can join a community like African Americans in Ecuador. Part two is a great community that shares not only medical information, but also just what it's like to live in a place. I know Journey with Us is Eliana's channel, and she's sharing about her birth journey. Her shorts are beautiful, have it's that so that you can see what it's like to be in a place. And as you all have heard, you can, under certain visa requirements, you can live and work in a place as you're moving toward residency or making that move abroad process more permanent. Please like, share, subscribe to this channel. We are sharing this information and so much more. I want to celebrate Nia and Eliana and Courtney. This is Black Maternal Health Week 2023, where we are lifting up Black women, their body autonomy, and the choice for being respected and loved and embraced in a time when we aren't always valued. So we value what you have given to us in this broadcast. Thank you all so much for joining, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you for
Bye for
having
Thank
now.
you
me.
for thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for having